Welcome to Bunning Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me as per usual, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. I'm going to kick off with transfer chat. Steve and James, don't know if anything caught your eye. I thought Atleti were fairly busy in the market. It wasn't the best or biggest, but as bettors, we're always looking for angles. I mean, Lookman to Atleti could be interesting, and the young kid that they got from Elche apparently might be a bit of a star. Steve, anything that caught your eye? How are you?
Hello, guys. I tell you one transfer that has caught my eye recently, and I think it was done just a couple of days ago, is a player called Adrian Lado, who was signed for Como from Hammarby for nearly $15 million. Now, this is a player who originates from the Swedish league and was seen as the next hot prospect. In fact, it's one of those, the only really sort of caught the eye in the last 6 or 7 games of the Swedish season. I mean, we expected him to have another year in Sweden, but for Como to go in, Como are really interesting because they have a sort of a different transfer model to a lot of clubs. So this is one of those transfers which could either be a complete boom or bust, if you know what I mean. But Adrian Lado, watch out for him. And then probably in the more mainstream leagues, it really caught my eye that Wolfsburg have reinforced by signing 2 centre-backs in this window, Jonas Ajeti from Basel, and they've also got a loan transfer in from the former Rennes man, Januel Belosian from Leverkusen. So Wolfsburg looking to improve that leaky defence, which has cost them all season. Will it make a difference?
Cost them, but probably won us money, given the fact that we go over a lot of the Bundesliga. Just one thing on the young guy at Como. Can he score? Como can he convert chances over 5 XG and drew 0-0 last week?
My.
For bettors, it was an absolute nightmare against Atalanta. Can he put the ball in the back of the net?
1 goal is all he scored in his career, I think. So that was. Did anyone get caught out by that Como match?
What are you doing?
That was crazy.
Yeah, me.
I was so glad I didn't watch
Como.
it live.
I bet Como.
5 XG.
97th minute penalty, Nico Paz.
Unbelievable.
Don't know what to say. James, Marseille are jettisoning players left, right, and centre. Xhake's gone Liverpool, but not until the end of the season. Anything catch your eye, France, or elsewhere for that matter, from a betting standpoint?
Well, the big transfer into France is a player we've already referenced on the show, which is Endrick. The window's closed now, of course. He moved to Lyon. We've already talked about him on the show. He's definitely the biggest move into League One. Slightly disappointing to see some of the young players who've left League One, and Marseille specifically have let a couple of really promising teenagers go. Midfielder Bakala, who's gone to Sassuolo, and a striker Robinho Vaz has gone to Roma. Before they've really got to show Marseille in League One what they could do. And we've had that at Rennes as well, with a really promising striker there called Meite, who's moved to the Saudi Arabian League. So most of this is down to the financial situation in League One at the moment. We know a lot of clubs are short of cash because the domestic TV deal didn't hold up. So understand why the clubs are doing it, but it is a shame to see 1 or 2 promising players leave before we've really seen the best of them, which is why having Endrick in League One for the next 3 or 4 months at least, it is really exciting for everybody watching the league over there.
Scored in midweek, did he, in the Coupe de France,
he did.
James?
Yeah, and he's been terrific. He's given them a cutting edge in attack, which they didn't really have. Said on the show before, he's really enjoying being there because he's getting the game. So definitely the main man at the moment in terms of transfers into that league in France.
Yeah, look, James has put him up for any time goal scorer, shot on target, those type of things since he arrived in France. And James has got a little special section for us this week when it comes to players to follow in one particular game in France. Just a couple of leans. We will get to that a little bit later on in the show. P&L on screen of the boys. We did manage a winning week last week, as we did the week before and the week before. Incremental rises, but a better week last week if you followed us. Get your comments in via YouTube, subscribe and like if you are new to the channel. We've got thoughts, picks, leans, analysis across 4 divisions in continental Europe. And we're going to start in Italy with the main game on Sunday night in Italy. We're in Turin. It's 2:45 kickoff Eastern United States. It's Juventus against Lazio. Juve are -210, Lazio are +650. the tie at plus 295 now. Steve Wyss, ladies and gentlemen, has called Juve spot on over the last 2 weeks. So we ain't going to stop him now by the sounds of things. They have been good recently under Spalletti, but were beaten in the Coppa in midweek. So, Steve, is it the usual play here? What are we doing with the old lady?
Yeah, Juventus -1, Asian handicap against Lazio. This is at -117. This is the usual weekly play on Juventus. I said a few weeks ago, I've got to make my mind up about them, whether to stick with them or not. And, they've got me back into profit of the old lady. So, yeah, there you go. Just the usual -1 play. Dan, enough said, right?
Well, yeah, but you can give us a little bit more if you want. I mean, Lazio have been poor, haven't they? Recently, I mean, I know they beat Genoa, courtesy of a 100th minute penalty last Friday that scuppered my chances. But they're having a poor season, and I think unexpected points they should be even further down the table here. I mean, Juve, I think we've suggested, Steve, that they probably are the second best side. In Italy, and you mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago that if they won the Champions League, Will White would shave his head. I noticed that the draw that they've got probably means that the Clippers are going to stay in the pack here for now. Got anything else on this one, Steve? Well,
let's just talk about Lazio for a little bit, right? I don't think any of us have really been high on them all season, have we? Especially offensively, they seem to lack weapons. They lack goals. In this particular head-to-head, they've lost their last 5 visits to Juventus, only scored 1 goal in that period. So, I think, let's be honest, if Juventus were at home against a sort of a lower mid-table club this weekend, they'd be -1.5 on the handicap, if not -1.75. So, I mean, Lazio are no great shakes at all. They're 8th in the table. I think the only reason you're actually getting a -1 is because of the reputation of Lazio, being a big club and stuff like that.
For sure.
They're probably going to come here and be quite defensive mindset, but Juventus are capable of beating. I think they're capable of breaking down teams. They're also capable of winning shootouts. They've got goals in them. They showed that the last 2 weeks. 7 goals in the last 2 Serie A matches. It wasn't that long ago they won 5-0 against Cremonese either. So this attack is firing. They're a team I want to keep riding in the right circumstances. I'm not going to be, completely on them every single week if it's a stupid handicap. But again, -1 just looks generous. Full push if they just win by 1 goal. But I think they win to 0. I felt a bit sorry for win to 0 backers last week, actually. They really should have won to 0 in that one. But I think this will be something like 2-0 or 3-0, and they'll show their full class. So very happy to have, again, an official 1-unit play on Juventus. This is -1 on the Asian handicap at -117.
Yeah, they've won 4 of the last 5 in Serie A and scored at least 3 goals in all. Of those victories, they can be relied upon at the moment. And of course, Guendouzi's left Lazio. That was a couple of weeks ago, but combative. He's gone to Turkish football, hasn't he? And Castellanos has gone as well. I know they brought some players in, but they've been a real unders team this season. They let loose a little bit, but courtesy of a few penalties against Genoa last week, I think Juve will win this easy. That's the main game on Sunday. The appetizer to that main game is Sassuolo against Inter. This is an interesting one in Serie A. James has got a play in this one. It is midday on Sunday. Sassuolo are 7-1 shots. Inter -245. Have been busy in the transfer window, as we've just been talking about. But Inter, who are top by 6 in Serie A, are just very, very, very good against sort of teams ranked in the bottom half, or certainly the lesser lights in Serie A. And once again, James, you've had a bit of fun with Inter on the Asian line, and you're going to go again.
I am going to go again. Yeah, I'm backing into this weekend on the Asian handicap with a -1 goal start, which is available at the moment at -132. But I wouldn't be surprised if that got a bit shorter, because it's essentially the same play I did on Inter last weekend when they were against Cremonese. Similar sort of side to Sassuolo, maybe a little bit weaker. And Inter looked a good bet to win that one, and they delivered for us. They won 2-0. So very happy to go back in again here on Inter. And it's one of those games where it's not just about Inter's form, it's about Sassuolo's form as well. I think every which way you look at this, the stats line up and say that this should be a fairly comfortable Inter win. So you said it, Dan, they're well clear at the top of the table. I think we've all agreed now for some time they are the best side in Serie A. They are very likely, I think, to win the title. Away from home, they've won 9 out of 11. The only 2 games that they lost were against Napoli and Juventus. They've been flattening, really, the other teams that they faced away from home. They've looked as comfortable away from home as they have at home in this division, so I don't think this game being on the road makes any difference to Inter. They had a midweek Coppa Italia game, as did Juventus. It's worth flagging that up maybe for viewers and listeners who haven't been able to be across the football all week. We've had midweek cup games in Italy, and we'll come on to that in France as well. I don't think it will make any difference at all to Inter that they played Torino in the Coppa Italia, because they rotated almost their entire starting 11 from that win over Cremonese last week in midweek. So they should be really fresh, and I think the players who start will be keen to ram home that they are the first choice players. So Inter looking really, really good, and Sassuolo at home or away against the better sides this season have been really poor. They've played, by the better sides, I'm talking really about the top 6 at the moment, which is Inter, Milan, Juve, Napoli, Roma and Como. 8 games, Sassuolo have lost 7, both home and away against these sides. So, they fit really nicely into this play on Inter, because Sassuolo are not one of those mid-table or bottom half sides who are able to pick up points, it seems, against the better sides. I think survival for them this year will be all about picking up points against teams in and around them in the table. So, yeah, it feels like a really safe pick here. Inter -1 on the Asian handicap. You will only lose, of course, if Inter don't win the game. And at the moment, everything here points towards an Inter win. So you may want to look at Inter with maybe a bigger handicap deficit, -1.25 goals, maybe even -1.5 goals. I'm playing it fairly conservative, but I'm very confident on this one. So it's Inter -1 for me on the Asian handicap at -132.
Yeah, just referencing that Torino game as well. That was played in Monza because it's the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in Milan this week. So and it's one of the reasons that Como and Milan has been postponed as well for a couple of weeks as well. Just another footnote, no Inter away fans at Sassuolo have been banned for 3 matches after some bad behaviour the other week. Let's stay in Italy here because we've got a couple of units. 2U play coming up, rolling back the years. Or the months at least, for Genoa against Napoli. This is midday Saturday. Genoa plus 375, Napoli -115. Genoa, the most profitable over 2.5 team in Serie A this season. Bookmakers continue to get them wrong with the prices. Steve and James have gone for the same play. Steve, you can go first with some reasoning.
Crikey, what on earth would have been said if we knew at the start of February Genoa would be the most profitable over 2.5 goals team? If you'd said that back in August,
incredible,
we'd have said, what's going on? Obviously, the manager change has been a big part of it. And, in the last, 12 games, I think there's only been 2 matches that have contained less than 2 goals. One was a 1-0 loss to Atalanta when they were down to 10 men after 2 minutes. And then a 0-0 at Parma. Every other Genoa match has finished with at least 2 goals since the 26th of October, actually. So why on earth are we getting a 2 Asian goal line in this game? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. It stood out like a complete sore thumb as probably the best value over or under goals bet in entire Europe this weekend. And by default, I've got to back over 2 Asian goals. So, if it's at -113, full push if 2 goals are scored exactly. Genoa are just far more open these days. They play attack-minded soccer. They just lost against Lazio 3-2, but to actually suck Lazio into a scoring fest takes some doing, I tell you. So that just kind of shows the direction that Genoa are heading in. And, I think they're going to fancy their chances against this Napoli side, which I think it's been struggling with the fixture congestion this year so far. They've had injuries across the board, and I'm not sure this defence is as reliable as it once was. They did keep clean sheets at home to Parma and Sassuolo, but they're on the road now to Genoa, and I think this is going to be a much more open fixture than the Bet Rivers Sportsbook suggests. So the goal line for me should be 2.5. Forget 2.25; it should be 2.5. So it's a no-brainer. For me, it's 1 unit pick. Over 2 Asian goals at -113. Hopefully we get them right. We've had a knack of not getting them on the right weekend, have we? But it's no surprise that James is going to join me on this one. We're certainly singing from the same hymn sheet, aren't we, James?
Yeah.
James?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really pleased when I opened up the notes down this morning and saw Steve had backed this as well, because I nearly made it a 2-unit play on my own. And then I backed out. I went 1 unit, and turns out we're doing 2 units anyway between us, which I think is justified, because I completely agree with what Steve said there about it standing out. When you went through the coupon ahead of the games, having done your research, I just did a double take on this line. It doesn't make any sense to me that the goal line around evens is set at over under 2 goals. Like, I can't fathom it, because Genoa, as all the stats show, since De Rossi came in, have been involved in lots of high-scoring games. And I should say about Genoa as well, we've mentioned before, not just on this pick, but that they've been more open under Daniele De Rossi since he came in as manager. It's worth underlining that it is actually working as well to some degree. I think if you look at Genoa's points per game total since he took over, they would have 30 points over the season as a whole, rather than the 23 that they've got. I think they'd be in 10th place based on what he's done, rather than the 14th. So I think their approach has paid off. They've opened up a little bit of gap between themselves and the relegation positions now. So it's no reason, I think, for Genoa to change their approach. I think the fact they're facing, one of the top sides in Napoli will make absolutely no difference. So I think they will go for it. I think 9 out of 13 now under De Rossi in Serie A have been over 2.5 goals. And I think Napoli, why would they not go for it as well? They've just gone out of the Champions League. Their focus now is, trying to defend their title, it's a tall order, but if they fail to successfully defend it, finish as high as they can in the table. And, they are 3rd, Genoa are 14th. This is a very winnable game for Napoli. So I think all the stats point towards goals. I think the way the two teams will play on the day points towards an open game. Over 2 goals at -112, -113, something like that. Very little downside to it. You could argue it's a slightly conservative goal line to take. Over 2.25 goals is available at +123. Over 2.5, which Steve has said, probably should be the goal line, is +160. So depending how brave you're feeling and how much risk you want to take, there are other options out there. But yeah, completely agree with Steve on this one. We're both lined up on it being a over game rather than an unders game.
+13.8 to 1U level stakes Genoa this season. Napoli also profitable over 2.5 side. Genoa also the most profitable both teams to score yes team in Serie A this season at +1042 to level 1U plays. Now, tennis, soccer, basketball, whatever sport that you're following right now, bet on it with a February fun bet. Betting Weekly and Bet Rivers have teamed up to give you a $10 bonus bet at Bet Rivers when you enter the bonus code BW201. That code is BW201. The offer expires on February the 15th. Must be 21. Eligible players only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, we go to Spain for the solitary play, an official one at that, and 1.5 at that. This is corners, Natch, Ovs, when it comes to Rayo, who take on Oviedo. Steve's in the chair for this one. It's an 8 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. Rayo are minus money favourites to win the game, but the corners lines have been kind to us this season with Rayo. You're going to split your stakes a little bit here, playing a couple of lines. It's sort of a ladder with a couple of rungs missed out, I make it here, Steve.
Yeah, I can't help myself here, Dan. This is Rayo Vallecano against Real Oviedo, and I love the corners in this match. I'm taking 2 bets. First one unit, over 9.5 corners. It's at -134 now. And the second bet that I'm going with is over 12.5 corners. It's at +270, and that's going to be half a unit play. So,
what's wrong with 10.5 and 11.5? Yeah.
Because, well, nothing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with 10.5. Do you know what? Nothing at all. But it just made more sense to me to, let's secure the profit. Okay. With, if we get 10 corners in the game, we're in profit. Just need 3 more then to have a really nice bit of profit. Honestly, personally, I'm going to go even higher. Actually, I'm going to go over 13 and 14.5 as well, because Real Oviedo have become a proper sneaky corner team. and I'll give Ruri Barlow some credit for this. He cottoned onto this early with them. But since their change of manager, the guy now in charge there is Guillermo Almada, former Pachuca and Santos Laguna boss. He's kind of simplified things a bit. Sort of 4-2-3-1 formation, sometimes 4-4-2s on there. And you look at the Real Oviedo's corner stats recently, apart from the one against Barca, then they've been racking them up. And I think we get a real good style of game here between Rayo, we know, are involved. They average a lot of corners, but they also concede a lot of corners, Rayo. Top 5 for conceding corners this season. So the matchup, I think, really helps. The only thing that putting me off a little bit, otherwise I might have had even more units on this game, is that good old weather forecast again. They could actually be snow in Madrid for this game, which is quite astounding.
What?
Yeah, they could be snow. So I don't really know how corners and snow are affected. So, I mean, the best thing, remember my Bundesliga talk with the cold weather didn't do any good at all. So I'm just kind of forgetting about this snow, pretending it won't exist. But we should get quite a good game. Hopefully there won't be many goals early on, and that, both teams kind of feel they have to go for it more. But Real Oviedo are definitely a sneaky corner team for those who are interested, and we know Rayo. So 2 separate bets on the game. 1 unit on over 9.5 corners at -134, and half a unit on over 12.5 corners at plus 270. And there's nothing wrong with a 10.5 and an 11.5 line either.
Yeah, I love that. We're missing a couple of rungs out officially. That's the staking plan from Steve. That's what he likes. But of course, you can do what you want. Corners is the play in Rayo against Oviedo. That's Spain done and dusted with. We've got some significant leans in Liga to talk you through next. Not any leans at all from the boys via our WhatsApp group on Le Classique, which is Paris Saint-Germain versus Marseille. But it is the big game in France. It's always the big game in France, isn't it? So I thought I'd better get some thoughts on it from James and Steve. I mean, James, Paris Saint-Germain are -275, not the shortest price they've been for this particular fixture, as we know. And Marseille did win the reverse fixture. Unlucky maybe in the Trophée des Champions as well against PSG. I mean, can you give them a squeak at $6 here? Asian line -125 for a +1.5 goal start. Is there an angle in for Marseille bettors or fans? What are your thoughts on the game?
Well, I think Marseille are capable of making a really good game of this. I think the issue with them is just how unpredictable they are at the moment. That would be my concern. They caught me out and were infuriating last weekend in Paris, actually. I was on them. People may remember from the show last week to win at Paris FC. They were 2-0 up and cruising to victory in that game, and then they conceded, I think, in the 83rd minute and gave away a ridiculous penalty deep into injury time and ended up drawing it 2-2. That's what Marseille can do. So that's the concern. They could maybe... Could they get a draw? Not sure. They could lose by 1 goal, but they could equally lose by 3 goals. So that's the concern. I think the angle into it from a betting point of view might be on Marseille, however, and goals, because I think it's worth flagging up, and people may not know this, but at the moment, we're 21 games into the season, Marseille have actually scored more goals in Ligue 1 than Paris Saint-Germain. I don't think anybody would have expected that. Marseille have got 46 goals on the board, and PSG have got 43. And if you look at PSG at home, which of course they are this weekend, I think they've scored 22 at home. Marseille have scored 19 away from home. So I think that's the angle to look at. I think Marseille, whatever we think of them, have been a tremendous attacking force at times in this division. So you may want to look at Marseille over 3.5 shots on target, which is -125. That wouldn't be a bad bet. You may want to look at PSG win and both teams to score yes, which I was surprised to find at +140. I think that's a pretty good price, given that you would expect PSG to win it and you'd almost expect Marseille to score. So there's a few ways in. As I say, I would look at the goals on Marseille, really, team goals and Marseille team shots and all the rest of it. I'd rather be on that than on Marseille to do something, because like I say, they're capable of making a game of it, but I'm just not sure what we're going to get from them at the moment.
Steve, any thoughts on this one? Are you betting Marseille? You're just going to watch it and hope that they win at PSG? Good to give that handicap start away. Any angles betting-wise for this one for you?
Joe, I think Marseille might be a bit of a corner dog here. This is do or die. Marseille are now, 9 points behind PSG in that title race, this is a must-win game. If they've got any remaining title aspirations, they've got to win the game. Also, Marseille would, if Marseille are not going to win the title, they'd probably like to see Lens win it. So, let's give Lens a good opportunity as well. So I think Marseille will be fired up. The big encouragement is how good they've looked in both fixtures against PSG this season. Maybe that's a new thing because historically in the last decade, they've kind of cracked mentally quite a lot in this fixture. But if that's a new thing, then I think we can expect them to give PSG a good game. And PSG still haven't been convincing in anything for a while, have they, really? They look vulnerable. I thought they were quite lucky last week, actually, against Strasbourg. We keep saying they're due a really, really top-class performance, but we've been waiting a long time now, haven't we, for it? I wouldn't be betting PSG here at, minus 275? Marseille 6-1. If I had to take a bet in the game, it would be definitely on the over goals market because I think Marseille have got to go for it. So, but unfortunately, we've got a goal line at 3.5. You could probably get on the 3.25 line in fairness. So I don't really see value anywhere, but I'm expecting a good game. I'm expecting a sort of match for Marseille where it is, say, it's do or die. And, if push comes to shove, historically, they find a way to lose the game, so it's like 3-2. But maybe it's a new version of Marseille. Part of me's thinking they can come to Paris and actually win. I think Marseille can win the game. I'm not saying they will, but I think they can. It's capable within them to score multiple goals, and why not reverse it around? PSG 2, Marseille 3, Dan. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I'm sort of get bought into Marseille a little bit, keeping an eye on one area out there as well. Scored on his debut. He's plus 230 score or assist, which is interesting. It should be a good game. That is Sunday, 2:45 Eastern. Let's dial it back to Saturday in France, 11 a.m. Eastern, Saturday kickoff. Lens against Rennes here. Rennes having been one of those teams that, I think we were sort of thinking that they might have a little bit of a run at a top 3, top 4. They've fallen apart recently here, James, and Lens have bounced back recently from a defeat.
Yeah, they have. It's a lean for me on Lens here, who are minus money to win the game. They're minus 130, which people may want to just take that. My lean is on Lens with a minus 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap at minus 104. Because you're right, Rennes have fallen apart. They've got a lot of talent in their squad, but they're not really showing it. And they go into this game on the back of 3 straight defeats, 2-0. 9 goals conceded, no goals scored. So the manager, Habib Bey, is under quite a bit of pressure here, which he was back in the autumn as well, and then sort of saved his job with a little burst of good form. But I think the doubts about him never really went away. He's working at this level for the first time. There are reports that not all the decisions he's making are going down that well with certain players in the squad. And Lens is not a place I think you want to go to unless you are all totally unified and pulling in the same direction, because, Steve's mentioned them. They are still in the title race. They lost recently to Marseille, which I think people saw as a bit of a test. How will they bounce back from this? Well, they bounced back from it with 2 wins, one in League One and then one in the French Cup in midweek. It's now 12 wins from the last 13 from Lens, so they're playing good football. They've shown they can be resilient as well. They've shown they can bounce back, and they rotated crucially in that cup game in midweek, so I think they'll be fairly fresh here. So I think there's a real difference in terms of momentum and confidence here, and it's going to be a big test, I think, for Rennes' players' character and the manager as well here. So it's just a lean, but very close to a 1-unit play here on Lens for me. As I say, I'm back in the Asian handicap, but you may want to just take them on the money line instead.
Brest Lorient next we can look at. This one is a 1 p.m. Kickoff on Saturday Eastern. Steve's got a lean for us here. I was amazed to see Lorient and their current good run. Steve, have I got this right? They've won their last 5, unbeaten in 12. I tried to price this one up. I still made Brest short price favourites pretty much as they are here. I'm just trying to think, what am I missing here with this Lorient side? I know you're not looking at the money line, but they've hit a bit of form, haven't they?
They have, and I can't really explain it, to be honest with you, because This is a team that should be locked firmly in the relegation battle. I think we've got to give a lot of credit to the manager. He has a history down the years of making water out of wine, really, doesn't he? And again, it's happened at Lorient, and Yeah, this is incredible.
Water out of wine or wine out of water?
Wine out of water, sorry. Yes, I've got it completely wrong. yeah. I'm doing him a disservice there. Yeah, I said it completely wrong. This wine is flowing very nicely in Lorient right now.
Yeah.
And the third
You're still on holiday, Steve. I know it's early. I know it's early in the morning, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Third straight Brittany derby for them as well. They beat Rennes 2-0 away, which we think we were both shocked at that. They've then gone and beat Nantes 2-1, which that's not taking much these days, but still a good win. And now another Brittany derby here away at Brest, and these two sides absolutely hate each other. There's loads of sort of different rivalries in Brittany, and these two cannot stand each other one bit. I like goals in the game. I like over 2.5 goals is quite a strong lean actually at plus 102. Really probably should have had a unit on this, but being it the local derby nature is the only thing that's put me off it. Brest all season I've been on about their defensive issues and generally overs have kind of hit with them. James mentioned last week that their manager said it's probably the worst run of form performance-wise that they've had since he's took charge. That's a concern, isn't it, heading into this game against Lorient? So I think really you're looking at sort of double chance on Lorient, over 2.5 goals sort of thing, based on recent form. But, in a derby match, throw the form book out the window, right, Dan? That's one of your old favourite sayings. So ultimately, that's why it's just a lean for me on over 2.5 goals. But I'm expecting a spicy encounter, and Lorient's run, it's kind of, we've hardly talked about them really, have we?
No,
and
it's
mystifying how it's actually happened. I don't know if you've got any theories, James. Have you got any theories on this?
Wow, honestly, not really, because I look at that squad of players and the starting 11 every single week, and I just think, well, they're gonna come unstuck at some point, because without wishing to be disrespectful, it is not an amazing group of players. It looks more like a bottom 5 squad and starting 11 than a mid-table one. The manager Pantaloni is a brilliant manager. He was at Ajaccio a long time. He overachieved for years at that club, and he's got Lorient promoted, and he's doing brilliantly. So I don't really understand it. And I'm with you, Dan. I look at the prices on this, and I think they're probably about right. But then Lorient are beating the prices every week at the moment, aren't they? So that's why I left it alone. I was a bit disappointed that I didn't go in on the goals last week when they beat Nantes 2-1, because they have been slightly underrated in terms of how high scoring their games are going to be. So I do like Steve's play on them this week.
Let's get to Strasbourg, who are away at Le Havre here. James, you've got some thoughts on this one. I mean, Gary O'Neill, there was obviously a question mark about him when he came in, but he's winning. I presume he's winning the locals over pretty quickly.
He is indeed. Yeah, Gary O'Neill has been absolutely brilliant at Strasbourg so far. Massive credit to him for getting to grips with the club and the squad and the country and the media and all the responsibilities that come with being a manager so quickly. It's a lean here for me on Strasbourg on the money line at close to evens, which looks really big to me. Strasbourg are minus 106 to win this game at Le Havre. Given how they're playing under O'Neill, they could win it by a couple of goals here. What's he done differently to Liam Rossigna to make Strasbourg better? Because I think they are better now. I think he's set them up in a more logical way for the players that he's got. It's a pretty straightforward 4-2-3-1. And I think every decision he's made about where to put players on the pitch is working. The players look really excited to be playing under him, and they're fighting on 3 fronts because they're still in the French Cup, they're still in the Conference League, and they're gunning for a place in Europe. So really exciting times at Strasbourg. This would have been, without any doubt, a 1-unit play from me, were it not for the fact they had a French Cup game on Thursday night. So they played Monaco in the French Cup. They won it 3-1. They were absolutely brilliant. They had an expected goals of more than 3 in that game. My only concern is they didn't rotate quite as much as I would have liked in that match. It was a fairly strong team that Strasbourg named because they're taking the French Cup seriously. It worked. They've gone through now to the quarterfinals, but I just wonder if this third game in a week might stretch them a little bit. They had PSG last weekend, which was obviously a huge game, then that game against Monaco. So let's see. And Le Havre have actually only lost twice at home this season. So that's my slight concern on Strasbourg. It's going to really stretch the squad here, or the players that start, in terms of their own energy levels. But given how they're playing, I think Strasbourg around evens on the money line is definitely worth a lean here.
Yeah, that expected goal figure, the model that I take against Paris Saint-Germain was the highest expected goals against for Paris Saint-Germain this season. So they can obviously sort of mix it with the best. I don't mind that at all. But yeah, my price is a little bit out for this one, I must admit. Let's get some player prop thoughts from James just to wrap up our Liga section here. We occasionally delve into this. They're not official plays. We know that things like shots on target can change rapidly. So look, bear that in mind. Big caveat with the prices that James is going to talk about at least. But you've got a couple of players that you think could be worth following in the Angers-Toulouse game, which is Sunday at 11:15.
Yeah, there are a couple of players in this game, which is not the most fashionable game of the weekend, we have to say, in League One, Angers versus Toulouse, but often that does throw up good opportunities, I tend to find. And yeah, it's a couple of players for Angers in the over 0.5 shot on target market that I think are worth flagging up. The first is Branko van den Boomen, who is a recent sign-in. He came into the club in January. And the second is Louis Mouton, again in the over 0.5 shot on target market. At the time of recording this, Branko van den Boomen is plus 170 to manage over 0.5 shots on target. Louis Mouton is plus 190. Now, the reason I think they're interesting is they're both midfielders, and Branko van den Boomen's come in to sort of play as the centre midfielder to dictate the play. Louis Mouton is really a centre midfielder, but he's playing more as a number 10 recently. And the reason I think it's really interesting for Angers is because they're creating very little in the final third. They've got a right winger who's really a midfielder. They've got a left winger who doesn't really seem to get goals. And they've just sold their centre forward, Sharif, who's gone off to Turkey. So it's interesting when you watch them play. The last couple of games, it's very obvious that there's not a lot of goals threat coming in the final third. And I think the manager is telling the midfielders to get more involved. I think he knows some of the goals and certainly the efforts on goal are going to have to go from them. So I think the price of plus 170 on Van den Boomen and plus 90 on Mouton, they're quite big for midfielders given how Angers are playing. And I think anybody that watched them last weekend might have seen that. Van den Boomen, I think, had 4 attempts on goal in that game, one of which was on target. Louis Mouton had 5 attempts on goal. 2 of which were on target and included the winning goal in that game when they beat Metz 1-0. So it's another home game for Angers. It's another game against a side who are pretty good in Toulouse, but not unbeatable. And I think Angers will play in a fairly similar way, which is to tell their midfield players who are playing centrally to, try their luck from outside the box, the edge of the box and that sort of thing. So these type of prices on midfielders sometimes I think are worth overlooking because they don't offer you a great deal of value if it's maybe a number 6 or a holding midfielder or something like that. But I think prices around plus 170 and plus 190 on Van den Boomen and Mouton are worth a look. I personally would be taking either of these players, anything above plus 150. So if they do move, I would bear that in mind. And obviously, if you back both, you just need one of them to manage a shot on target to make a profit. So you're absolutely right, Dan. The prices obviously move quite a bit sometimes in these markets, and they're not official plays or leans from us. But if you are looking for player props in League One this weekend, then those would be the names to focus on.
Can I just add something on
Bit
Van
of
den
Bundesliga
Boomen?
chat. Go on.
Because I just think it's such an ironic fixture he comes back against because he actually had a great record at Toulouse. In their promotion-winning season, he had something ridiculous like 12 goals and 21 assists. He also was on penalty-taking duty for Toulouse back in the day. It didn't quite work out for him in Ajax, did it? But
was there a problem with when he signed for one team, then went back to another, having not played a game? Have I got the right player here? There was a bit of a. There was a bit of a steward's inquiry, and he ended up going to Ajax. He moved from one French club to another, didn't get on with someone, something changed.
Yeah, was it Lille? It might have been Lille, actually. It might have been Lille. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, Dan. But yeah, this guy is, I can't believe it. He's playing against Toulouse this weekend. I mean, he's plus 575 to score any time. Would he celebrate if he scored? I don't know, probably not. But he had one unbelievable. He was like a staple. Every single week, you would bet on him to score or assist in that season for Toulouse when they got promoted. So definitely a player to keep an eye on, and he's really good on set pieces. He's really good on penalties, free kicks.
Have a look at that. I'm just trying to think if I've got the wrong player with that. I don't know if it's Van den Boom or somebody else, but anyway, We do digress. Let's get to the Bundesliga. Got a little bit of chat here with Steve regarding a couple of games, or more specifically one game and one new managerial appointment. We've got Daniel Tuna, potentially, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce him, but he's the new Werder Bremen coach here. Steve, you just wanted to mention this one. They're away at Freiburg on Saturday, 9:30 Eastern.
Well, what a frustrating... Werder Bremen have really annoyed me this week. First, they equalised with the last kick of the game against Gladbach last week.
That killed us. That was such a good bet. Such a good bet.
And the frustration was...
losing bet, but a brilliant bet.
Yeah, for 75 minutes, they were completely outplayed again, and it was just in the last sort of 10-15 minutes. They showed something, got a late goal. But then I was thinking, you know what, I'm just going to load up the gun big time next week and go against them again. But frustratingly, they sacked the manager. Horst Steffen is out of a job. And they brought in Daniel Tuna, who I've never heard of. I looked at him and I thought they'd got Wilfred Nancy in.
No.
Honestly, he looks just like Wilfred Nancy. I thought Wilfred Nancy's landed quite well on this
Exactly the same.
But he's never managed.
I don't think this guy's ever coached in the top flight, has he?
No, he's 51 and he's never managed in the Bundesliga. He's certainly done his trade below in Bundesliga too. 135 matches for Fortuna Düsseldorf, average 1.72 points per game. That's pretty good, you know. So I have no idea if this tune is going to be a hit or a miss. And I'm so frustrated because I tell you what, I was honestly considering a minimum 2-unit play on Freiburg this weekend, possibly more. I might have had to get on the phone to Nigel and said, "Can I have 3 units on a team?" Because Bremen
no, but go on.
have been awful. Bremen have been so bad recently. Like their performances are so poor, and Freiburg have generally been in good form. So I think what are Freiburg -143 on the money line? I think they are.
-132.
Oh, I mean, that could look, honestly, that could still look an unbelievable bet at the end of this weekend. But I've been done before, Dan, by new managers.
Well, if it is Wilfried Nancy in charge, it will look a really good bet.
I've been done before with new managers suddenly taking charge and there's a random performance spike. So reluctantly, and it is with great reluctance, it is a no-bet game. But I thought I'd flag this up because of almost out of my own frustrations, Dan. Let's see how Daniel Tune gets on. If they suddenly randomly start performing, let's see. He did have a good record in Bundesliga too, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
The other game that you want to mention, Bayern against Hoffenheim. Bayern lost at home to Augsburg and then drew away at Hamburg. The last 2 Bundesliga fixtures not really opened the door for anyone else in terms of the title race, I don't think, but you never know. But Hoffenheim are absolutely flying, and we were just talking before we started recording here. I'm going to bet Hoffenheim here. I mean, they're plus 850. Wanted a little bit more. I might just play them on the 0.5. I mean, Hoffenheim could get hammered. They could get hammered. Lost the reverse fixture easy. Was it 4-1? Lost here last season 5-0. But Bayern maybe not quite right. And I just think stylistically it might fit for an informed Hoffenheim side. They don't create a lot, but what they do create is usually quality. Are Bayern going to slip up? We're going to have a title race in Germany, Steve? What do you think?
Well, there's only 6 points gap now to Borussia Dortmund. That's incredible in itself, that the season that Dortmund have had. But, I mean, Vincent Kompany has a good record against Hoffenheim. He's always smashed them. But before that, Hoffenheim had a knack of bloodying the nose of Bayern. They're actually one of the few teams, I think, in the last 5 years, 6 years, who probably have one of the better records against them. They've beaten them twice in that period. So I don't think they're going to lack belief in this one, Hoffenheim. They're going to give it a go. They're third in the table. What a season they've had. I mean, and then the crux of it is the goals that they've scored. 43 goals. Only Bayern, I think, have scored more goals than them. So, you know, that is why the goal line here is at 4. But would you dare bet under? Would you dare bet under 4 Asian goals in this one? Probably not. Would you?
Would you dare bet? Would you dare bet over 4? You got a 5 in the game for a cash.
Yeah,
Steve.
I would. I'm not gonna, but I would if I had to go over 4 or under 4. I'd go over 4. I mean, what is the world coming to?
I'd go under.
And I would go if I had to. I would go +2 on Hoffenheim on the Asian handicap at -134. I think they're going to give it a good crack here. Bayern probably will win. Because, you know, but Bayern have looked really shaky defensively of late. I don't know if they've lost focus or what. Very strange. Augsburg and Hamburg are hardly the sort of teams you would have expected them to struggle against. But maybe something isn't quite right at the moment there with Bayern Munich. It'd be just like them to rack up a big win now, wouldn't it? But I think it's a fascinating contest. I think it's a really tough card, by the way, the whole Bundesliga this round. No official picks from me. I can't go with my usual Frankfurt bet on this show because they're playing Friday night. And the rest of the fixtures looked quite difficult overall. But this is definitely the most high-profile game. Hoffenheim at plus 850. I know you like them, Dan. Hoffenheim here, so
I'm going to bet them. I'm going to bet them.
Yeah. Good luck.
I bet them last week. I'm going to bet them this week. I'm going to play half goal handicap as well. I mean, they could get absolutely hammered. Be interesting to hear from Malvo, who gets in touch via Twitter. I think he's at Bundesliga Bets or Bets Bundesliga on Twitter. He always gives us a little bit of a rundown of all the German fixtures. So have a look at that. He seems to have some really good opinions on that. So Malvo, what do we think? Are we taking Hoffenheim on the Asian line here? Let us know. One more game to look at. Monday Night Soccer for you. Atalanta, Cremonese. James has got a lean in this one. This is 12:30 Eastern on Monday. That buying game, incidentally, is 11:30 Sunday. Should have mentioned that. But this one is 12:30 Monday Eastern time. Atalanta minus 305. Very, very short. Cremonese, though, cannot buy a goal, let alone a win at the minute. They have slipped. As James, you thought that they might do a good few months ago, and you've been proved right here because they have slipped, haven't they, in terms of form? But Atalanta having escaped with that 0-0 at Como somehow, despite facing over 5 XG. Can they win this one? What's your lean?
Yeah, I think they can win this one, Dan. It's just a lean, but it's on Atalanta here, minus 1.25. Asian handicap, which is at minus 127. So you do need Atalanta to win this game by 2 goals or more to make a profit on it. But I think they can do that, And we mentioned Lorient in France earlier on in the show as a team who have been doing really, really well, and we haven't really mentioned them. I wonder if we've maybe overlooked a little bit what Atalanta have been doing in Serie A, certainly since their change of manager when Palladino came in, because if you look at how they've played since he came in, they're actually a top 5 side in Serie A in terms of results and points since he took over. So good times at Atalanta, and this is the sort of game they have been winning recently at home to one of the division's weaker sides. They beat Parma 4-0 at home. They've beaten Torino 2-0 at home, and they've beaten Fiorentina 2-0 at home. That's all since Palladino came in. So sort of game where they've looked really confident. They've obviously just had that really impressive win in the Coppa Italia as well at home to Juventus. Things going very well for Atalanta, and the opposite for Cremonese, who obviously caught the eye with maybe 1 or 2 players they brought in and transfers, and they are an interesting side, but they have, for me, been found out recently, especially when they've played the better teams in Serie A. I think if you look at them against the current top 5, they've lost 6 out of 7. That's both home and away, and 5 of those 6 defeats have been by 2 or more goals. So they're not just losing when they face the better sides. They're losing by a lot. We saw them lose 5-0 at Juventus not that long ago. They lost 4-1 at Inter. Could have been even more earlier in the season. And there have been some defeats by a couple of goals elsewhere as well. The question is, do you see Atalanta as a top 5, top 6 side? And if so, does that metric count? I would argue you can do, as I say, based on how they've performed since Palladino came in as manager. So I think Atalanta should get it won. Minus 1.25 on the Asian handicap. You'd probably rather it was minus 1 on the Asian handicap, and then you'd feel secure that you're at least going to get your stakes back. But I do think there is evidence out there that Atalanta can win this by a couple of goals. So it's just a lean, but strongly fancy Atalanta here to get the points.
Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. That's a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get your picks in the comments section. We'll be back next week. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.